We've known for a long time that humans weren't the only species around. Neanderthals were thriving across Europe and the Middle East back then, while the Flores people clung to their tiny tropical island. And far away, in the depths of the Ice Age, Asia was home to a mysterious group. They're called the Denisovans. All we'd ever found were a few bone fragments and DNA preserved in billions of people today. But for over a decade, they were just a name. Until now. Scientists have finally put a face to that name, and the more they dig, the stranger it gets. What kind of world did they live in? Who did they meet? And could they actually have survived longer than we thought? Maybe even beyond the Ice Age? Were they really the giants of legend? Today, we're diving into who the Denisovans really were, what's fact, and what remains one of the biggest mysteries. The story begins in 2010 with a tiny finger bone fragment found in a frozen cave in Siberia. At first, scientists thought it was Neanderthal. Then the DNA results came in, and jaws dropped. It wasn't. This was a whole new branch on the human family tree. They named them Denisovans after the cave where the bone was found. Denisova Cave, nestled in Siberia's Altai Mountains. 2 years later, another bone was sequenced. It belonged to a girl. Her mom was Neanderthal. Her dad was Denisovan. So far, she's the only confirmed prehistoric mixed heritage child, humanity's first known interspecies hybrid. And this incredible cave was basically a prehistoric crossroads. People came and went for thousands of years, leaving behind mind-blowing artifacts, polished redstone bracelets with tiny drilled holes, all handcrafted with skill, advanced tools, and possibly even art. These weren't primitive cavemen. They had culture. They might have even had an eye for beauty. But here's the weird part. Outside this one cave, Denisovans just vanished. For over a decade, all we found were scraps of bone. But here's the thing. Their DNA still lives in billions of people today. How could they leave no trace? Then, in 2021, a bombshell discovery broke. Chinese scientists revealed a massive skull unearthed in the Songhua River Basin in northeast China. It was nicknamed the Dragon Man. Scientific name, Homo longi, and it was a big deal. It was first found in the 1930s by a worker building a bridge. To keep it safe during wartime chaos, he hid it away. It stayed hidden for decades until recently, when scientists used CT scans and modern tech to re-examine it. The results were jaw-dropping. This is one of the best-preserved ancient human skulls ever found in East Asian archaeology. It dates back about 146,000 years, and this brain was no joke. 1,420 cubic centimeters. That matches Neanderthals and is a full 10% larger than modern humans. But the real kicker? Its facial features were wild. Massive brow ridges, even bigger than Neanderthals. A wide, flat face, huge nose, probably adapted for cold, dry air. Thick, robust teeth. DNA analysis showed those oversized molars are a Denisovan hallmark. Their skulls were low and long with no chin, common in Neanderthals and other ancient humans, but totally unlike us. In a way, this longi skull bridges the gap between East Asian ancient humans and Neanderthals. It shares traits with Dali man from northern China and Solo man from Java in Indonesia, but with intense Neanderthal-like features. Bottom line, way different from modern humans, but not simple. When you factor in the tools and tech from Denisova Cave, it all points to a complex, super-adaptable ancient human. But here's the question. Is this longi skull really Denisovan? At first, scientists were cautious. They gave it a new name, Homo longi, a whole new species. Just for one skull. But as more data rolled in, a new picture emerged. Researchers found the longi skull's shape matched a Denisovan jawbone from Tibet, confirmed back in 2019 through bone structure and muscle attachments. That same year, genetic studies showed Denisovans were widespread, with multiple distinct populations, and longi likely belonged to an East Asian branch. Then, in June 2025, a breakthrough study dropped. Researcher Fu Xiaomei and her team managed to extract mitochondrial DNA from the plaque on the skull's only surviving tooth. The results stunned everyone. Even after ruling out contamination, the ancient DNA closely matched Denisovan samples from southern Siberia, including 27 unique genetic variants only ever seen before in the 7 sequenced Denisovans. No one else has them. Need more proof? Protein analysis told the same story. A full set of Denisovan-specific proteins preserved for nearly 150,000 years. Still, not everyone was convinced. One Chinese paleoanthropologist not involved in the DNA work raised concerns about modern contamination. And yes, modern DNA was present in the tooth. But Fu's team used an ultra-rigorous extraction process, targeting only ancient fragments with extreme care. As of 2025, this Longji skull isn't just a strong candidate. It's the first Denisovan skull confirmed by both protein and DNA. For the first time, we have a Denisovan face and their genetic code. This will let researchers re-examine other ancient skulls across Asia to see which ones are related. This isn't just a fossil, it's a turning point in human evolution. It proves Denisovans weren't some obscure Siberian offshoot. They were widespread, genetically diverse, and all over East Asia. Their story is just beginning. A lot of people think human evolution is a straight line, from primitive apes to modern humans. That's only half right. The truth is richer and weirder. We modern humans, Neanderthals and Denisovans, all share a common ancestor, like one big family. Think of them as our cousins. We didn't evolve from them. We're branches from the same tree. That common ancestor lived between 600,000 and 800,000 years ago. At some point, the Neanderthal-Denisovan line split off from the future modern human line. Tens of thousands of years later, Neanderthals and Denisovans split from each other. Neanderthals went west, dominating Europe and Central Asia. Denisovans went east, spreading across the vast Asian continent. And in Asia, they did something incredible. They adapted to wildly different environments, from the frozen Tibetan plateau to the lush plains of northern China, to tropical islands in Southeast Asia. Denisovans survived everywhere. That takes serious adaptability. In Melanesia, they faced megafauna, beasts 3 times the size of modern elephants. And they definitely encountered Gigantopithecus, the largest ape that ever lived. Imagine Denisovans interacting with them, hiding in the jungle from tigers, or hunting young giant apes while the parents weren't looking. The picture of their world is absolutely mind-blowing. An entire continent dominated by humans we still barely understand. Denisovan skulls were huge. In many ways, they looked a lot like Neanderthals, stocky, powerful, built for the Ice Age cold. But they had their own traits, flatter faces, bigger teeth. And genetically, they were incredibly diverse, at least 2, possibly 3 distinct populations. One lived at high altitude, the group from that Siberian finger bone. Another, more southern, still lives on in Papua New Guinea, Australia, and parts of Southeast Asia. And now, with the Longji skull, we know there was an East Asian branch, morphologically unique but definitively Denisovan. This tells us one thing. Denisovans weren't a small tribe. They were a vast, complex population spread across Asia, just like Neanderthals in Europe. Culturally, they were sophisticated. Advanced stone tools, jewelry, symbolic objects from Denisova Cave. We can't be 100% sure they made all of it. Modern humans were in the area too. But their legacy runs deeper. Their genes still affect us today. When modern humans left Africa, the world was already occupied. And when we met, it wasn't just war and competition. We interbred. Their DNA lives on in us. Nearly everyone outside Africa carries a little Neanderthal DNA. I've got about 2% myself. But Denisovan DNA? That's different. It's not evenly spread. If your ancestors were European, you probably have very little. But in some populations, like Tibetans and Papua New Guineans, it can be as high as 5 to 6%. And those genes do real things, like helping Tibetans breathe at high altitudes. Denisovans weren't just ancient relics. They shaped us. They're part of who we are. So next time you look in the mirror, remember, a tiny piece of you might have come from a mysterious giant who roamed Asia 150,000 years ago. The Denisovan story isn't over. It's written in our blood. And every new discovery pulls back the curtain on a forgotten chapter of human history. We're not alone in our past. We never were. And the more we learn, the more we realize how connected we all are. Across time, across species, across the ancient world. If your ancestors came from Europe, you might have almost no Denisovan DNA at all. But if your ancestors came from Papua New Guinea, Australia's indigenous peoples, parts of Southeast Asia, or the Philippines, the story changes completely. Geneticists have confirmed that Denisovan DNA isn't just one type. There are multiple variants. Where exactly did these encounters happen? Evidence shows there were multiple contacts between Denisovans and modern humans. The first likely occurred as Homo sapiens pushed east across Asia, from Siberia into China and beyond. The second happened farther south, as humans spread into the Southeast Asian islands. Genetic models suggest this second contact may have taken place 45,000 to 55,000 years ago, right around when humans first set foot on these new lands. Even more interesting, some long isolated groups, like the people of the Andaman Islands, have virtually no Denisovan DNA. This means these gene-mixing events weren't global. They were specific in time, location, and population. But the effects of those contacts still impact us today. Some Denisovan genes undoubtedly help certain groups survive better, like in Tibet, where the EPAS1 gene in Highlanders comes from Denisovans. That gene lets them breathe easily in low-oxygen highlands, while others would be gasping. This isn't just ancient history, it's survival code from our ancestors. Other genes have subtler effects, like immune response, fat metabolism, even bone structure. And unlike Neanderthal DNA, Denisovan DNA is very unevenly distributed. In East Asian populations, it's just a trace, but in Oceania, especially Papuans, Australian Aboriginals, and some islanders, Denisovan DNA is shockingly high, making up 4% to 6% of their genomes. A 2024 study even found that Papuans and New Guineans at different altitudes not only carry different amounts of Denisovan DNA, but different types. Lowland groups have genes that boost immunity. Highland groups carry variants that promote early brain development. Even more exciting, this research hints at a thrilling possibility. Denisovans may have crossed the Wallace Line, the natural biogeographic boundary between Asia and Australia. Many animals can't cross it. We know early Homo sapiens did, and now it looks like Denisovans might have too. If future fossils confirm this, their range would expand dramatically. It means they didn't just roam vast continents. They crossed oceans. They were seafarers. They traversed huge bodies of water. So based on current DNA evidence, an astonishing story is emerging. Denisovans may have lived in Southeast Asia for a very long time, long enough to form massive populations. Though we still lack enough fossils and archaeology, they were no minor branch on the evolutionary tree. They were Asia's Neanderthals. And how long did they survive? That's one of the most mind-blowing mysteries. It's possible they lived far longer than we thought, maybe even witnessing the end of the Ice Age. Could they have survived in hidden mountain refuges or on forgotten islands, clinging to existence? The youngest known Denisovan fossil comes from Denisova Cave in Siberia, about 50,000 years old. But remember, that's just one cave in the coldest, harshest corner of their range. It says nothing about how long they lasted elsewhere. Imagine digging in northern China, Vietnam's rainforests, or deep in Oceania. What secrets might we uncover? A 2019 genetic study found shocking evidence that Denisovans may have survived much longer than imagined. The paper estimated, based on interbreeding timelines and modern population patterns, they could have lived until 30,000 years ago, or even 14,500 years ago. That would mean they nearly saw the end of the last ice age. Mind blown? We thought Neanderthals went extinct around 38,000 years ago. If Denisovans made it to 14,500 years ago, they might be the last known ancient human to survive. But the mystery deepens here. Southeast Asia's fossil record is fragmented. Rainforests are thick, soil is wet, bones rot fast, and rising sea levels flooded ancient sites. So we know far too little about Denisovans in this region. Fossils are scarce, but DNA speaks loud and clear, especially in Southeast Asia, where many groups carry sky-high Denisovan ancestry. This suggests Homo sapiens likely met Denisovans somewhere in Indonesia as they arrived. Even on the same island, like Papua New Guinea, different groups carry varying amounts of Denisovan genes. Some groups interacted later or more often. Could small Denisovan pockets have survived on remote islands long after? It's very possible. Remember, many island myths speak of mysterious other people, tall, strong, or strange, appearing from afar, then vanishing. Could these be echoes of Denisovans? Myths aren't proof, but when combined with DNA and fossil gaps, the idea gets exciting. Southeast Asian archaeology is still young. Many sites remain untouched. In the coming decades, we may unearth game-changing clues. So for now, we can confidently say, Denisovans were far more numerous and lived much longer than we ever imagined, possibly even overlapping with early human history. Until we dig deeper, no one knows for sure. But with something as mysterious as Denisovans, as long as unknowns remain, myths and legends will keep creeping into pop culture. And one persistent myth is that they were giants. Search online and you'll see it everywhere. Denisovans were 8 feet tall, rulers of a lost civilization. Some even claim they crossed oceans to the Americas and built the mysterious mound cultures. Sounds epic, right? But here's the truth. What does science actually say? First, the Longi skull is big, 1,420 cubic centimeters. Definitely large, but big brain case does not equal giant body. Take Neanderthals. Some had brains up to 1,600 to 1,800 cubic centimeters, bigger than ours. Yet they averaged about 5 feet 5 inches. Short, stocky, powerful, no giants. Same with Denisovans. From the Haben fossil and scattered evidence, their body proportions were likely similar to Neanderthals, short and robust, built for cold, rugged terrain. Their big teeth and wide faces? Probably for chewing tough, fibrous plants. Calling them giants because of teeth is a stretch. Other ancient humans, like the Flores people, aka hobbits, had massive molars, but stood only 3 to 4 feet tall. This shows taking fossils out of context leads to wild misinterpretations. So if someone says Denisovans were giants, they're likely pushing pseudoscience. Current science has zero evidence they were giants. Their size was probably much like their cousins, the Neanderthals. So where did the giant myth come from? Part human imagination, we love filling gaps with legends. Part 19th century hype, newspapers sensationalized giant skeletons found in the Americas. Most were misidentified, exaggerated, or faked. Some were just tall individuals or ritual burials. But fringe theorists later linked them to Denisovans, despite zero fossils or DNA in the Americas. Native Americans today do carry a tiny bit of Denisovan DNA, but it came from Asia. Their ancestors interbred before crossing Beringia. Of course, finding a real 8-foot Denisovan chasing mammoths or wrestling cave bears would be incredible. But honestly, even without the myths, the real Denisovan story is already mind-blowing. They split from the human line hundreds of thousands of years ago, spread across Asia, survived for tens of thousands of years, and left us super useful genes. That's the real story, and it's way more epic than any giant legend. They weren't monsters. They weren't myths. They were real people. Our blood relatives, living on this land long before we left Africa. And their story has only just begun. We're just starting to uncover one corner of it. The rest, still buried, waiting for us to dig and discover. who we really are, and where we came from. The Denisovans aren't gone. They're in us, always have been, and always will be. Our ancient cousins, our hidden strength, our forgotten family. And the more we learn